So good morning, I'm Rupert Culme-Seymour from ontrade Consultancy, and I'm delighted to be hosting this webinar this morning with a cracking panel of 4 multiple operators from the UK independent free trade. I'd like to welcome Anthony Pender, founder of Yummy Pubs, Phil Thorley, Operations Director of Thorley Taverns, Garry Mallen, founder and owner of GC Mallen, and James Nye, MD at Angling Country Inns. Good morning, gentlemen. Hope you're all well. And before we get started, if you could provide a brief overview of your business, that'd be great. Anthony, do you want to start?
Yeah, sure. So hi, I'm Anthony. I'm co-founder of Yummy Pubs. We are a small pub company with sites predominantly in London, one country pub, been going now for 12 years, mix of freehold and tied sites. So we've had a good run of it up until the pandemic, and we are cracking on and meeting the challenge head on now.
Excellent, thank you. Philip.
Hi, Philip Thorley, Thorley Taverns. We have 19 venues in the Mediterranean of Kent, the hot bit down the bottom, Margate, Ramsgate and Broadstairs. We're now fully free of tie estate, mostly freehold, but we do have some leases. 350 people. We're a seasonal business that trades 52 weeks a year.
Excellent, thanks Phil. Mr. Mallen.
Yeah, hi, I'm Garry Mallen. I'm a multiple pub operator from South East London, North Kent area. I've got a collection of 7 or 8 pubs, mostly freehold with a couple of leaseholds. I do have some pubs that are let out on a leased basis. We employ about 180 people. Been operating for close on 35 years.
Excellent, thank you. And lastly, James.
Hi, I'm James. I'm Managing Director of Angling Country Inns. We are a family-run hospitality group. We run pubs and restaurants in Hertfordshire and Norfolk, mixture of freehold and leasehold, but all free of tie. We're big food-led operators. We've got 9 sites, employ about 300 people. And we've got a few rooms as well to boot.
Excellent. Thank you, guys. So today, the topic was reflections on the year so far, and obviously looking ahead with masses of positivity to next year. But so James, do you want to kick off, reflecting on this year? What was the biggest operational impact of the pandemic on your business?
Well, we've been closed more than we've been open. I think that's the most significant one, and it's made us look at what we do and how we do it. We've had to rethink everything. We've had to go back to the drawing board and just look at how we can react to everything that got thrown to us at what actually turned out to be very short notice. I guess what we learned is that we can probably do more with less. Even considering all the government support we've had, we've learned that we can actually be a bit more operationally efficient, which has been a positive for us. We're relatively well positioned. We are not in large cities. We're in commuter belt territory and domestic tourism hotspots. So we had quite a lot of demand when people weren't going to cities and were looking to stay at home. So we had to adapt really quickly to what we thought would be very tough trading measures. And it's been tough, but we've managed to react quickly and adapt to the circumstances that have been presented to us.
Yeah, thank you. Challenges. Philip, down in the Riviera of Kent, how have things been?
Well, for us, obviously very similar to James. Shutting down in March and then reopening in July. Fortunately, one of the good things for us is that we haven't had to lay anybody off, Rupert. The amount of staff that we had in operationally in March, we could get them all back on the books and going again for July. We were actually struggling to take on more staff come the summer because we had Eat Out to help out in August, which was fantastically successful for us. It was almost as if we had 6 weekend days a week and 1 day of downtime, and it was a good financial boost. I think it was a good confidence boost to get the general public out. But I have to say, and I don't think anybody will cry for us, but our team were absolutely frazzled. I had managers and chefs and front of house people who were just worn out, and we got through that very successfully. I think it proved to a lot of people that pubs and hospitality is a safe place to come out to again, and that platform continued on with the good weather into September. I think the taking James's theme of less is more. I think we're working on a lot shorter menus than we were doing before. I think we've got some long established food businesses, and I think we're being in danger of being adders onto menus. You've got something good and you add something else on, and you add something else on, and we've slimmed down the menus, and people were eager to come out and have the hospitality and the quality, and the volume of choice didn't matter so much. So that's something that we're going to take forward definitely from our business. And the other thing is probably cutting down on hours in community pubs. I think we run probably half of our estate is wet-led community, and we'd always operated those 11 in the morning till 11 at night, or maybe midnight at weekends, Friday and Saturday. But we've taken the opportunity to open those after we got the reopening time, to open those mid-afternoon, late afternoon, and so trying to get the trade squashed into a shorter time. Albeit that we had all the limitations of seating and social distancing, we were still managing to get reasonably good takes out of pubs in a shorter time. So I think those are a couple of the main learnings that we've taken from shutdown one.
And Gary, with your business model, with the leases as well, what were the biggest sort of impacts to how your business was run and the sites?
Well, even at my age. We've not seen a crisis like this in the industry or in the country, and so it was something completely new to everybody, including people who've been around for a while. And in terms of the effect on the people, that was the fear in the GMs and the staff and the general public was palpable in March. So it required a lot of thought and consideration about how to deal with the lockdown, because it was foisted upon us at short notice. It was something completely new, and the team, I have to say, reacted really well. So the biggest problem, I think, is, as the guys have alluded to, when you come across a closed down period like that, is adapting to the new world. And one thing that we found out is that people do adapt really rather well. And the impact on the business, as in most businesses, is going to be the lack of expansion throughout the year, the lack of growth throughout the year, which won't have an effect for maybe a year or two's time, when we see the fallout from that, and also the accumulated losses for lots of businesses throughout. That they're not all zombies, but there's plenty of zombies out there. Albeit the government have offered us some support, not everybody got that support, and even those that got it, the grants in no way have covered the losses that have been accumulated during that period of time. And of course, the guys have both said about the reopening of the businesses, and that definitely was a boost and a help. And because we learned along the way, because we realized that less is more, as James has said, and we can operate on less, and as Phil's said, reducing menus, we became slightly more profitable per pound of turnover for the period once we reopened. And that's a lesson we'll all learn and use for the future.
Yeah, I mean, and I think that point you're all making about the resilience and the pace of adaptation in your people, your teams, your businesses. I mean, Anthony, obviously seen a lot from your business partner Tim, but how have things been, since pandemic? How have they affected your business?
I think firstly for us, we're in a position where we've, as the guys will know, we've faced a bit of adversity in the couple of years running up to this. We had a pub underwater for 4 months, and we just about recovered that one. And then someone decided to flick a fag in another pub and burn half of it down for us, which happened to be our flagship site. So within our business, there was a level of tenacity and resilience already built in, because we were just kind of getting to the annualization of the fire and a recovery. So we were kind of looking at it going, we're in a great place now. We've sorted a lot of problems out. And obviously mid-February, central London, it really hit. So it hit the centre of London early. And our trade was already hemorrhaging by over 30% by the third week of February. So the actual closure itself came as a relief because we were operating a site at the time because we believed we had to operate it to be eligible for insurance, which nobody was in the end. So the closure actually became less of a loss than being open itself. You see the advantages of being a smaller business. We talk about having to react. The communication from government has been wanton. The disease obviously doesn't do what it's told, so we're having to react quickly. But we've built a level of experience in that in our own business, and I think a lot of what we call the smaller mini multiple operators have been able to adjust and do that, and we've seen some great innovation. So for me, yes, the closure was hard work. It's probably been the hardest I've ever worked in my life. But at the same time, I think we've seen some of the best innovation come out of our business and a lot of other businesses ever before. And my team had just got better. Our communications got better. From the middle of February, we started communicating just 45-second to 1.5 minute clips around, are we going to be able to pay them? How long can we pay them for? This is before the furlough was announced. Then with the furlough coming, how long was it before the furlough would come in? When are they going to come back to work? What training they need to do? We had to rewrite our whole kind of rule book about health and safety and EHO kind of stipulations around risk assessments. And we had to do that digitally. Now we managed to do that and bring a risk assessment to life. A 25-page document on COVID risk assessments was done in 20, 45-second videos that we were able to push out and retrain our guys before they even step foot back in work. It's not like a normal situation where you can put them all into the workplace and train them. They had to be trained on these items around social distancing, hygiene, before they even met each other to be safe. So it presents challenges, but at the end of the day now, I feel like we always had a professional team, but I feel my team's more professional than ever. And actually, they're just so tenacious that they've been absolute warriors through this, actually. The way they've dealt with stuff, the way they've got on with things. They volunteered very early on to feed homeless, to send meals to needy people who had to kind of ultra kind of isolate with the NHS letters. And I think it's made them a more valuable part of their community, and it's also made them more appreciative of the team and the jobs they do. They actually value themselves more. And I think you've got to take positives from everything, and that'll be my one positive from this is I have a team who value themselves and are more valued by their customers.
Yeah, no, it's really good. I mean, I'm scribbling away words like complexity, tenacity, resilience, adaptability, team, people. You touched on communication. I mean, probably to the wider panel, out of this complex chaos that has been this year so far, is communication the key thing? James, how have you, integrated your teams in some of the clear messaging that you need to get out quickly?
Yeah, I mean, I'm going to reiterate what Garry said, that initially when we first locked down, there was a huge amount of anxiety, uncertainty. People were worried about their jobs, their livelihoods. So what we did was we did weekly videos from the board to the whole of our team, just simplifying what was out there. I think that was the first thing we looked at. There's so many different voices out there. The media have done a very good job of muddying the waters on what's actually happening. So we got our information from a good source. We did a lot of work with UK Hospitality and other trade bodies where they're actually dealing with accurate information, and then simplified it and just let our teams know what was happening and gave them some foresight as to what would be happening coming up as well. And I think that just gave them a bit of confidence. I think another thing that we realized was you needed a bit of humor with it as well. There's a lot to be said that, when you get stressed, the first thing to go is laughter. And so we went through a phase of actually just not making light of the situation, but trying to add a bit of humor and just
pragmatic sort of,
yeah. And I did a video where I actually ended up dressed as Buzz Lightyear riding my little boy's tractor down a hill to all our team, just to show that actually just to try and relieve some of the stress and anxiety. And like I say, it is a pretty serious situation, but if you go around looking serious all the time, we needed to communicate confidence to our team that we had this, we were in control, and actually let's enjoy this downtime while we can and try and make the most of it. So I think, we were quite careful with what we tried to put out there. Keep it simple, communicate what's happening and what will be happening to your team, and do it with a sense of lightheartedness as well that tries to relieve some of that stress.
Yeah, thank you, James. Thank you, James. I mean, and Philip, obviously, heavily involved in UK hospitality as all you are. But I think that piece about communication, probably from a internal perspective with Thorley Taverns, but then obviously the wider collaboration with the trade associations. Do you want to sort of touch on that?
Yeah, I think that we're in a privileged position, I would say, sitting on the Council of UK Hospitality, that getting access to information very quickly. It's then disseminating that, as the lads have said, down to the team to say, what does that actually mean to the team? I think picking up on the theme of people being nervous, I think that there's been a lot more uncertainty around lockdown 2 than there was around lockdown 1. I think lockdown 1, we had fantastic weather. I think we were cracking on and doing bits and pieces in the pubs, getting on and doing some jobs that we hadn't had time to do, or you would normally have to close down to do. And the communication was really good lockdown 1, and really quite positive. And yes, there was some humour about, James. And I think that people we're in a good headspace. And the fact that we were going to be entering into the summer when we reopened for our business was a really good thing. People were really, really eager to get back to work and get to it. I think lockdown 2 has been very different, and I think we've had to do a lot more supporting with the teams. I think there's been a lot more concern. I think there's been a lot more worry in lockdown 2 than there's in lockdown 1, to the point that tomorrow we find out what tiers we're in. And locally here, our numbers spiked over the last 3 or 4 weeks, and we could be looking at tier 3. And that gives a whole load of concern out to ourselves and to our teams and to our customers. So there are some big issues still there. It hasn't gone away just as yet. We try and disseminate all the information out to the teams the best we can, including sending the odd video clip out. It's amazing how far they get. Customers all get to see it, don't they? I don't know how many of your customers have seen you in your Buzz Lightyear gear, James. I think we also have a networking group called G8, where we've got 20 odd of us, where we'll sit and discuss issues. We had one of those Zoom meetings yesterday for an hour and a half, and there was a lot of concern coming through from everybody, because it's the uncertainty of not knowing how long it's going to be going on, and missing Christmas trade, the possibility of totally missing Christmas trade, only adds to everybody's anxiety. I was saying this morning to a chum, I went for a run along the beach to try and get my head a bit clear. And I was saying to him that furlough's fantastic. And if we wind up in tier 3 tomorrow, our team will at least have 80% of their money. But at Christmas, everybody needs 120% of their money. Yeah. So they're going to be falling way short. And that is a massive concern for our teams over what is normally a happy, celebratory, fun time for the industry and a fun time for every family. So the mental state of the team is something that is extremely important to us. Like Anthony was saying, the resilience of our team has been fantastic. We haven't had to lay anybody off at all, which has been outstanding. And our team have stuck through it and have supported their team. Having 350 people, you can't touch all of those personally, and you devolve a lot of that to the management team, and they've made sure that they've been making good contact with their teams to keep them in the best spirits they can.
Yeah. Thank you, Phil. I mean, interesting. Langton Capital, Mark Brumby, the tier system. What do we call it? The fears for tiers. Tomorrow we will all find out where we all sit. But Garry, from all the chaos of lockdown 1 going into lockdown 2, is there anything that really you've taken on in your business and learnt from and implemented?
Well, before I move on to that, I was touching on the communication aspect. Fairly early doors in March, and in fact, as soon as Boris announced on the Monday that we should avoid pubs, I spoke to the 3 tenants and assured them that I would share the pain with them in terms of the rent. And I know the Pubcos have been tremendous, largely have been tremendous in terms of the rent reductions they've offered the tied tenants, and even some of the tied, free of tied Pubcos have offered discounts for the tenants in the paying the rent. Commercial landlords have not been quite as helpful, and that's an ongoing issue and won't be resolved for some time. But once the announcement was made, getting we were lucky insofar as we sold a couple of pubs last year, and so from a financial aspect in March we weren't looking maybe at the same risks that other people were looking at. And so I was able to say to all of the guys that work for me or work with me that whatever happens, we'll be here when we reopen. Not everybody will be, but we will be. And that calmed them down fairly swiftly. And so, and they in turn calmed down the guys that work for them. And so from a communication point of view, it was easy to resolve the issue, and the staff came together and had their own WhatsApp groups and you know, fun. Maybe not all of them running down mountains in Buzz Lightyear outfits, but and that's one big Buzz Lightyear, isn't it?
It might be the lighting on the webinar, but yeah.
Frighten a lot of people. But you know, so communication was vitally important. But from that, you know, once we got to realize that we were going to open, you know, opportunities arose. And I think one of the things that struck me was the opportunity to get communication with the customers from fairly early doors. You know, because we were able to, or we had to meet and greet people as they came in the pub, that gave us a chance to communicate with them. It gave us a chance serving them at the table to communicate with them on a more regular basis. You know, you go to the bar, and if it was quiet, you may have some communication with the bartender. Of course, when it was busy, there was no communication. So, you know, one of the things that we've learned is that it's easy to, there's a lot of disinformation out there, and both in terms of the staff finding out things that aren't necessarily true, but also the customers. And so having that opportunity to communicate with them, either serving them, greeting them at the table, or from, as the guys have alluded to, our close links with UKH, giving us top quality information, we were able to get the message out. And that, I think, made the staff feel safe, and it there in turn made the customers feel safe. And so that gave us a chance to really communicate with them, and gave us a chance to communicate with the workforce. And so there's always opportunities. You know, you need to look for them, and you know, gain what you can. But communication has been key.
I think as a sector, we can say that I think for years and years, we've been wanting we're very good at insular talking, so within ourselves and between ourselves. And actually one thing that the pandemic we can take as a long-term positive is we've now got a strong voice in Parliament. Part of that is because of the merger of UKH, the full formulation of it, but it was well timed to deal with this pandemic, but also it gave us a soundboard that we all agreed on and us one unified voice, and all of a sudden we're listened to in Parliament. But I think, and there was no conjoined strategy on this, but I think the amount of volunteering, the amount of good deeds that venues did, despite the fact they were looking down the barrel of a gun for their communities and for, as I said earlier, like homeless and needing meals, and just the things that were done, like opening up hotel rooms for NHS workers in isolation. I think that's made people value us, not just individual pubs, but the whole sector is value us now, where before we were seen as a bit of a default job of last resort. Now we're a profession. Now we're someone who's important, and now people see how brilliant our guys were in those couple of weeks onto lockdown, and they kept smiling, they kept serving despite the risks or the unknown risks. And when we came out and went into Eat Out to help out, the goodwill was phenomenal. We introduced the service charge across our business. Not one customer said no in that time. They all paid the service charge, 8%, because we're not a restaurant. We're not going to charge 12.5. We charged 8%. They did it, and people were topping it up. They appreciated the team, and actually hospitality has been missed. And I think one thing we've got to take from this as a positive is exactly that. We're now seen as professional. We're now seen as an important part of our communities and society. And I think if we play this right, that we can have that for the long term. We now have the value that you see in France, Germany, across the continent that we never had. We are important, and we've got to keep that voice going. But it is, if you look for positives to the pandemic as an industry, that's the positive we've got to take. There's a lot of negatives, but that's a big positive for me.
Yeah, I mean, I think that the contribution of the UK hospitality sector to UK economy is colossal, and I think unfortunately through the pandemic, and even now, even going into Christmas, you know, the realization, the demystification, the awareness of the sector now, and all those key values are part of it, is really, really important. I think similarly, you know, Steve Alton 1 year in, Emma McLaughlin, BBPA 1 year in. I mean, Kate Nichols, as we know, has been you know, part of UKH for a while, but you know, the one voice coordination of all three associations has been fantastic, and long may that awareness of the sector really come to bear. But great to hear that you know, consumers and customers are supporting in that way. You know, James, in terms of sort of key learnings going into the new year, anything we're not going to talk about your wish list, maybe a different suit to wear, but anything that has happened in your business that you think, actually, you know what, amazing that's now appeared, I'm going to take that forward.
Yeah, I think there's been some, we've had a hand forced with certain decisions, and actually they've turned out to be positive. So things like we've gone cashless in the business. We'd never have done that if COVID hadn't forced our hand. We had a few operations that were purely order at the bar, and actually a few of our sites had bars that was order at the bar. Now they've got table service, which was, they would never have gone down that route. You're starting to see that actually we're getting a lot better spend per head. Individually, their tips have shot up because you know, it's table service, and people are starting to realise that there were changes that we made to the business because we had to, but actually they're beneficial for the business in the long run. And there's things that they're going to go that we're going to continue on well beyond COVID. I think one thing that we've realised, this is as a central management team and at the site level management, we're very good at adapting quickly. You know, the way that we've set our business up, we're not a brand that just rolls out the same concept across all the sites. We sort of decentralize a lot of the decision making to the general managers and to the head chefs. And that's actually played into our hands very well with this, because again, we're empowering the guys at site level to make decisions and how we respond to this, arming them with the right information and the right support. And it's empowered them, it's grown them as leaders and managers. And I think one thing that we've definitely learned that we'll take into 2021 is that we are a lot more responsive and probably more agile than we ever thought we'd been. You know, Garry, you said it, you know, we've all reacted well to this. And I think it takes a crisis for you to realise how strong your management team is and where the strength of those people lies. So the fact that we've got through this far, and, you know, touch wood, we'll be here to continue into 2021 and beyond. I think coming through that, just the experience of having dealt with this crisis is going to make a lot of our key people, and actually people further, you know, further down in the business, a lot stronger for it. So, you know, as much as it's painful to go through it, I think we'll come out of this having learned a lot.
Yeah, absolutely. I think, agility, some words, pivoting, agility, and you're on mute. I think some key words from this year. But Philip, you know, with December upon us, and then looking ahead to what normally in the trade is a quiet January, how are things looking ahead for you?
I think, you know, like just taking up on James's point, there's always, every cloud has a silver lining. We're taking some key learnings from the pandemic and how we've opened up since that. Similarly, we haven't gone cashless, but we're taking a lot more credit card, which makes it a lot more efficient, to be perfectly honest, a lot less trips to bank, etc., a lot more secure. Certainly, there's lots of things to be taken from that. I think the resilience of our public is an incredible factor. Despite the fact they've had to sit down, despite the fact they've had to wear a mask, despite the fact they've had to track and trace, they still want to come out, they still want to enjoy hospitality. And that interaction at table has been essential for us as well in getting the correct information out and positive, happy messages out, as opposed to it all being negative. So I think that there's lots of stuff that we can take forward with that. Just politically, I think that we want to keep pushing the government. I think you know, Kate has done an outstanding job for our industry in one voice, as Anthony was saying earlier on. However, you know, some of the time I think that we've been listened to, but they've then gone and done exactly what they wanted and not listened to what they've been consulted to. And we have been the whipping boys for all of this, and I think it's been really unfair. Public Health England's facts don't show that it comes from pubs or restaurants. 1.6% of cases coming from pubs and restaurants. Okay, if you look at it, it's 28% coming from schools, 22% coming from hospitals. However, when we're all waiting for tomorrow's tiers to come out, and do you know the only people who are going to be in tiers? Us, right? Just doesn't, it's not right, it's not correct. They're not following the science, and I think we've got to push back and kick back a lot harder with government. We've now got the platform, and I think we've got to use it.
Yeah, I concur. I mean, we've listened to the government. We've done everything we can to make our sites as safe as they can. Yeah, probably more so than any other industry, to make our sites COVID secure and actually supervise alcohol and people socializing. We are the best place for people to be if they're doing that. You know, you don't get supervision at home. You don't get the regulations at home. And you know, we've put millions of pounds as an industry into PPE and training and socially distancing. I mean, I saw Alex from Loungers had hired 2 warehouses just to put all his furniture in. There's a huge cost to us to be safe. And we were doing what the government was told, and yet we are still bearing the brunt of it. That it's not good enough. It doesn't add up. It's pointless for doing all this stuff if we're only going to get struck harder with the whip when it comes down to this tier system.
Yeah, and the point that at Christmas, you know, is it 3 households that can mix, and yet you can't in a pub?
No,
it beggars belief. But Gary, I saw you nodding just a second ago.
Yeah, I mean, I find it staggering that the government keep on using this as the whipping boys, and I think part of that is because we've displayed an adaptability that most other industries can't display, and because they keep on giving us more restrictions or closing us down. Closing down the pubs in the last 4 weeks or 3 weeks so far hasn't helped the transmissions. You know, the tier system probably had started to take an effect before they closed us down. They've got no evidence, and they keep on changing the rules by which they wish to apply restrictions, not just on us, but largely on us. And so, you know, I heard them talking the other day about cases, whereas, you know, when they first started this, it was about hospitalizations and saving lives. Well, once hospitalizations have leveled out and the deaths pretty much have calmed down, then certainly the excess deaths have calmed down, then they start talking about infection rates or rates per 100,000. They change the rules all too often. And as Phil says, Kate's done a tremendous job this year. So has Emma and Steve Alton. But I go back to the licensing reform in 2003, when I didn't feel we were getting listened to within government. And you know, the government listened to everything we said and then completely ignored us and went ahead and done what they wanted. And I'm getting the same feeling right now, whereas they just do as they please. And it's farcical that 3 family groups can meet together over Christmas in their homes, but can't do it within a safe environment of a pub. And you know, we're going to get to the end of the Christmas period because of the infections through the mixed households. They're then going to close us on absolutely certain in January and February, and it's not our fault. And James said we've invested millions, and we've shown the public that we can do this safely, and the public absolutely believe us. Only 14% of the public that visit pubs are concerned about the COVID measurements. It's over 50% in shops.
Yeah, and you all, without the guidance, cracked on with the operations, put in all the safety regulations, put in all the staff training to ensure that all your customers had a safe, enjoyable experience when you reopened, and you will do again.
I think it goes beyond that, Rupert. I think I've said before this, but I think when it came to reopening and doing the risk assessments, yes, the social distancing aspect, the masks very much had to be brought in. But when we talk about hygiene and surfaces and everything else, let's talk about cross-contamination, HACCP, COSH, all these things we already did. We were better than any other industry. We were well placed to be ready for this, because actually our standards and the amount we have to jump through already regulation-wise for licensing and for EHO, our processes in our businesses was already built to withstand this. and it was adjustments and it was hard work. But when I was rewriting these risk assessments, a lot of it was copy and paste from what was already there, because you know what, where we've got 5-star EHO venues, they're already doing it. We're already trained, we're ready. And I think we've shown that again, and I don't think it's been listened to. And we've always said about the supermarkets selling alcohol for cheap, and they talk about an alcohol problem and it's the pubs. This is no different this time. I'm in a pub in East London right now, 100 metres from Victoria Park. Saturday, there were thousands of people with cans of beer at a farmer's market. They could buy the beer in cans at the farmer's market. They're then all sitting around, thousands of them on benches and everything else. It was worse than we're doing. We've got everyone sat down place, table service, as we say. These guys are queuing at shop counters to buy items, and then all sitting together in groups of 20, 30, 40, 50, even in the middle of winter. And this is going to happen over Christmas. And what you're doing is you're actually closing the controlled environments. What I will say to that, though, is in the last 72 hours, I think everybody in our sector is very angry. And I think we have to take stock for a minute, because we can't react in anger. We have to step back a little bit. I've seen Twitter and social media over the last 48 hours, and we have to have a strategy. We have to listen to Kate and the team on this. We can all play our part, right to our MPs, but we've got to be clever about this. We've done so well so far, and we shouldn't let ourselves go now with sort of a knee-jerk reaction to this. We've got to carry on the joined-up thinking, and we've got to be careful, because as I said, this second lockdown has been a lot tougher, but it's still our job to all work together with one unified voice and listen to the professionals who know how to talk to Parliament.
But that integrity is a hallmark of operators such as yourself in the sector.
You've nailed the word there, integrity. And I think we've got to keep that integrity. I don't think we should be just ignoring what's being said. I think we've got to play the political game here. And I think the public deserve that, actually.
I mean, this week, my government has dropped significantly. You know, I've understood what they're doing and followed it. But again, there's been a watershed in my own personal feelings about what's happening in this last week with some of the illogical and decisions made. So
2021, your wish list. What's the one thing? Just one. What's the one thing and why? Garry.
Well, I'm not sure I could look at one thing. You know, I frankly, I just want to see the back of 2020. I think that's I think most of the people in the country would like to see the back of 2020. But you know, we need to have a stabilisation in the economy, and because that filters through to everybody in the end. And of course, those at the top get by okay, but it filters through less to the people at the bottom, and it takes longer. So we need to get that back, and we need to get the young people back to work, both in our industry and in other industries, because young people need social interaction. And part of the reason that we employ a lot of people in the hospitality industries, young people in our industry, is because it's a fun industry to be in, because they, on a daily basis, they interact with other young people and have fun. And so that's the whole point of joining the hospitality industry. And those that join can now, as Anthony said, see a progression through, and it looks a much more professional professional organisation to be part of. But young people who go to offices, you know, working at home in March and April when the sun was shining was fun. You know, not having to commute, sitting out in the garden. You know, as it's gone into the winter months, that's not quite the case. And losing that social interaction between the young people has dramatic effects. And so, you know, I think if I could have one thing to turn a switch on, it would be instantly that we could have social interaction again back on the table. We can filter through the improvements to various industries or economies, but if we could get that interaction turned on as soon as possible, I think that will bode well for a 2021.
Yeah. Thank you, Garry. Yeah, Philip, any?
Yeah, I like Garry. I can't make it one. I can make it three, and I'll make them three and quick for you. Okay. Firstly, I think we need a vaccine that works, because that's the thing that's going to get our nation and the world back to normal, if there is such a thing as normal. Secondly, I think I want financial support to be extended, particularly for our industry, and particularly for the nightclub boys. I've only got one place that does late night now, but for the guys who do late night, they are just been hung out to dry since March. Okay, but I think that the 5% VAT on food is good. I'd like to see that extended to alcohol. I'd like to see the rates holiday continued for the whole of 2021, because I think we are being hit the hardest, and I don't think we're being given the support for it. I mean, to be given a small pub £1,000 and a big pub £3 a month towards the bills and shut you down is pathetic, absolutely pathetic. And anybody with any modicum of idea about how to run a business would know that's pathetic. So that's two. And thirdly, I'd like to see the communication and our industry keep going as one voice. I think that one of the great things that supported me and our company and my mates in the industry who are on screen here, we talk regularly, we help each other, and then we feed that into UK hospitality to get our wants and asks from government. And I think we want to get a bit sharper with those wants and asks, and maybe push a bit harder with the fact that we are recognised now as an industry which has a huge worth, as Anthony was saying earlier on. So that's my three: is vaccine, more support, and continue with one voice and keep working together.
Thank you, Philip. James.
I agree with both Gary and Philip. It's I've got a feeling the world will heal itself. You know, we've got a vaccine in sight. Generally, when you do go through times of great difficulty, you know, they do pass, and actually the world comes together after it. And I think you'll start seeing that. Well, I really want to start seeing that in 2021. Socially, I think, you know, there's been a lot of damage done through lack of social interaction. You know, you can't measure it, you can't see it, and that's why people haven't been able to see it. But I think you'll see the impact of that. And so hopefully in 2021, it's a world where we can come together again. We've been starved of seeing people, of actually making meaningful connections, and you know, only so much you can do on Zoom. So, you know, if I just have one ask for 2020 is that we're allowed to see each other again and actually have meaningful contact. And I think, you know, through that, relationships will repair, and there will be a huge amount of pent-up demand to do that, because that's exactly what's been taken away from us. So just to see each other again will be my big ask for 2021.
And Anthony, the final word is, the final wish is with you.
I'm an eternal optimist, so I believe the vaccine's going to work. I think we've had these months of lockdown. We've been moving slowly technology-wise to people saying, oh, are people going to go out, or are they just going to use the internet and Zoom and everything else to interact in the long term over the next decade? I think this will reverse that, and people are going to come out in their hordes. So I believe that's going to happen anyway. My big ask will be, I think we need government and businesses to recognise that just because we're through this and now venues may be busy, we've got long-term financial impact. I've got loans now that are basically swallowed into cash flow. And when you do business 101, you're told never borrow money for cash flow, borrow it for capex. But we've all borrowed money for cash flow. And I've got instances where I've got a pub with a 5-year lease left on it, and I've got a 7-year loan repayment on it. It doesn't work. So we need the landlords to remember, okay, brilliant, we're going to start paying the rent again, but we're going to need to talk about commercials. And I think the same will go with suppliers. I've had some suppliers say, right, we're only going to give you 1 week's credit now, when I've traditionally had 45. So I think we're going to need our supply chain, our commercial partners to work with us, not just through the pandemic, but afterwards, because there's going to be a recovery period. And I think, back to reiterate the guy's point, I just want to carry on how we have been as a sector, working together and actually raising our bar further. We've got we are now one of the best in the world, and that came from 20 years ago being one of the worst. I think we should be proud of that, but I think we've still got more to do, and we can carry on working towards being even better.
Fantastic. Well, gentlemen, thank you so much for your time, your honesty, and what a really, really interesting and insightful conversation. Thank you. On behalf of Ontrade Consultancy, just like to wish you all and all your teams a fantastic reopening next week, and a very strong trading December. Thanks a lot, guys.
Thank you, Rupert.
Yeah.